Do you want to know the real difference between the top 1% of students and, well, everyone else? It's not about being naturally gifted, it's not about studying all day long, and it's definitely not about being a nerd. Believe me, I remember how does it feel to study all day long, to feel the pressure from my peers, from my professors, from my parents that I don't study enough. Yet I don't see any results, and that's what's draining. So today I decided to share with you my story, my techniques and strategies how you can become a top 1% student. And so, in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to do this exactly with a bit of science, a bit of common sense, and in the way that you can understand it and effectively apply it to real life to improve your grades, your understanding, and your overall confidence in your study and in your knowledge. So, if you're ready, we shall begin. Here is the thing, most students study wrong, and back then, a few years ago, I also did study in the wrong way. Rereading your notes, highlighting papers, books, cramming all day before an exam, and even in the night. This is not an effective way and really productive and healthy way to study. If you don't believe me, science says the same thing, that this techniques, the study technique, this the way of studying doesn't work like you would expect it to work. A study in psychological science in public interest have shown that rereading, highlighting, and cramming all day long and all night long are literally the least effective and efficient way to study and to learn. So, I would like to introduce you to some real study techniques that actually do work. They did work for me, they did work for my friends when I introduced them to them, and well, you can try it by yourself and see whether they do work exactly for you. Meet your new friend. Active recall. It's not about rereading or highlighting your notes anymore, no. Now we're gonna literally actively test our brain for understanding on the topic or the material that you've been learning. Instead of passively reviewing your notes, you're actively testing yourself. Here is how it works. Close the book, answer yourself a question about the topic, and try to answer without looking at the answer sheet in the book. Here is a pro tip that I started using when ChatGTP came along. So I decided that it would be a nice idea to implement artificial intelligence in my study routine. And so, for instance, when I was studying math or calculus, I would read a chapter from a calculus book, and then I would close the book and ask ChatGTP to create 10 questions for me about this topic. And so like this I used to practice and test myself on the material that I learned. This is effective because it trains your critical thinking to find some creative ways how you can find an answer, how you can answer this answer, and it also improves and ameliorates your logical reasoning. When you force your brain to retrieve information, you're actively strengthening your neural pathways, making your memorization much better. You can think of it as weightlifting for your brain. The more you lift, or the more consistently you do this, the stronger you are becoming in the long run. So, if you want to reread your textbook for the third time, well, you can better off quizzing yourself. Trust me, you'll thank me later. Now let's combine active recall with the spacing effect, spaced repetition. Here is the thing, instead of cramming everything in one night, you would want to separate your memorization, your active recall for a few days. Here is how it works. Instead of cramming every single topic and every single material in one night, you strategically allocate the material between days. Like, first you review it 1 day later, then 3 days later, then a week later. And after all, you are able to review it a month later, and if needed, 3 months later, and so on and so forth. Remember what I said in my previous videos? Well, your brain hates change, and especially memorizing something new, because it thinks like it is unnecessary information for you because you have some sort of knowledge already that you've been using. And so scientists call this the forgetting curve of your brain, meaning that after a few days your brain basically dumps the new information that you learned. However, spaced repetition and active recall with it fights this forgetting curve. Basically, you're reviewing and actively energizing your brain to retrieve information that you learned, meaning that you won't forget it in a few days or in a few weeks. Moreover, spaced repetition transforms the new information that you learned from your short-term memory to your long-term memory, meaning that you will be able to use it afterwards without retrieving or rereading and relearning this information once again. Personal tip for me: if you want to level this technique up to the next level, you can download Anki or Quizlet, because these applications have automated system for you with automated and included spaced repetition in their interface, so you might want to check that out. You know how I love deep work. I discovered this technique just a few years ago, but I already implemented this almost every day because it's really that effective. No distractions, no multitasking, no notifications, just pure focus. And so, how I implement deep work in my daily life: instead of studying for 3 hours straight without rest, without breaks, I love implementing Pomodoro technique. As you might know, or if you are not familiar with this technique, basically Pomodoro technique is a timer for you that you're setting 25 minutes of deep work and including 5 minutes of rest. You can tweak the intervals in the best manner that suits you, but the basic timer is set for 25 minutes of deep work and 5 minutes of break. I personally now use 40 minutes of work and 5 minutes of rest, but if you're a beginner, you can start even with 50 minutes of deep work and 5 minutes of rest and try to improve and progress with your time intervals. For the love of productivity, remove your phone. Put it away, like not even in this room. Put it in other room, but do not even see it. You don't want to have your phone in your peripheral eyesight, like just don't use it. Actually, a study from University of California shows that having your phone in your nearby distance decreases your motivation and your productivity to work by nearly 20%. And if you think that this technique isn't effective, well, think about it in this way. Would you rather study for 3 hours when you feel drained, you feel not really productive, and you just study for the sake of studying for 3 hours? Or instead, you're studying for 1 hour but on your full capacity? Which one you would choose? You may think that sleep and exercise have nothing to do with your studying. Well, they're literally the key for your study effectiveness. Because if you don't exercise, if you don't sleep a lot, well, that really affects your productivity levels. Sleep is literally the phase of your life when your brain processes the information that you learned and better memorizes it. Basically, sleep is like your detoxifier and restorative process for you, where your body literally processes everything that you consumed throughout the day. So, no sleep, no productivity. And what about exercise? Well, it boosts brain derived something called neurotropic factor. Basically, if you don't exercise, you lack in this happy hormones for you, and you won't be able to be motivated enough for your work, for your deep work, or simply for managing your everyday tasks because you don't move a lot. So, if you're skipping sleeping or exercising, you're literally sabotaging yourself and your productivity in the long run. These ones have to be non-negotiable for you. 7 to 8 hours of sleep and 30 minutes of exercise at least. And I know some people may say that, well, I don't have a lot of time to sleep enough or I don't have a lot of time to exercise. Well, you probably think that exercising is only going to the gym or only running. Well, it's not, because exercising is also walking, it's also yoga, it's simply being active throughout the day. Like you're catching the bus, you're already active. It also counts as activity. If you sit all day long and literally like you're sitting for 8 hours, well, this is not being active. But if you can incorporate fitness in your everyday life, even if you're not going to the gym, that's already an achievement. And talking about sleep, I personally think that you could reevaluate your current routine and find out the holes in it. Because you might find some holes where you're simply skipping through your TikTok feed or Instagram feed, and you think that they're valuable time for you, that you cannot simply switch to sleep. But actually, you're simply wasting your time. And at the time, you could literally sleep those 7 to 8 hours. So reevaluate your current routine. I know that everybody says that you should adopt this growth mindset. I don't like this world, honestly, because, well, it's, for me it sounds like some guru say that, well, you just have to be creative and you have to be motivated about everything that you do. But it's not realistic, we all know that. And I would like to simply say that if you say to yourself every day that I'm not good enough, I'm not prone to study math, I'm like better at languages but not in math, or I'm good at STEM majors but not in like social majors, stop. You have neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is basically the ability of your brain to change. And why in that case you cannot learn the new language or you cannot master math? Like, if your brain can adapt, maybe not unwillingly, but still it can do this, why can't you? Every time you struggle, your brain is rewiring itself. You literally grow as a person. So do not afraid of struggle or failure, because it's literally stepping stones for your success later on. Here is a bonus tip. Focus on 20% of the material that will give you 80% of the results. Don't waste hours on small, tiny details that won't show up on your test, on your exam, whatever you take in. Prioritize. Find the most important things that you have to know, and then if you have time you can dive into more topics that you're interested in. But for the first time, when you like trying to create a schedule for yourself for this exam, to prepare for this exam, you have to prioritize and you have to find out the most important that you have to know. Ask yourself, what's the most likely topics, materials that probably will show up on the exam? What concepts do I need to refine a bit? Where should I start learning to become more confident on the exam? Like, literally create this sort of interview for yourself to find out the areas where you need to improve. And the advice that you will hear from me almost always: start small. You don't have to rush, you don't have to learn it all in one day, but you have to prioritize what you really need at this point of a time. If you want to learn a new skill, you have to focus on the beginner stuff level before advancing too fast. Pick one strategy today and try it out. And remember that being a top student isn't about being perfect or ideal person. It's simply about consistency. How disciplined are you to consistently practice, to consistently improve yourself, and consistently ameliorate your skills and your knowledge? It's simply all about this, not about perfection. As always, you can find PDF downloadable guide in the description down below. It contains a summary of this video, a calendar tracker to track your progress, and some additional tips that are not covered in this video. So you can check it out in the descriptions down below. And actually, recently I wrote my first ebook that you can find in the description down below as well if you're interested in it. And so it's all about productivity, how you can structure your life better, how you can become a Renaissance person or a polymath, how you can learn multiple skills without being overwhelmed, how I personally did this, and some tools that might help you. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, give your thumbs up, and share your opinions in the comments down below. And I really want to see you in my next videos. Goodbye, see you next time.